Episode 7 of the Dr. Tottenham podcast. We are at Dr. Tottenham on Twitter. That's at Dr. Tottenham. I'm at Ztronch. Tim is at TIMMAH621. Dan is at Yidvids. Vass is at VCon1. I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty shit way to start the season. But as I said to Vass before we started today, our challenge is to try and provide an entertaining pod and try and look on the bright side, but while also, I guess, telling it like it is. You can find us just about on any podcast or any place that you can find a podcast, iTunes, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. We're on YouTube. Please subscribe. Appreciate your reviews. Appreciate your questions. All right, let's get right into it. Timmy, I always like starting with you and lineup. Your thoughts from the get-go was about what you expected. No, it really wasn't, was it?
Well, there's only one difference in it is in my lineup, and the one that we saw was I had Sissoko instead of Winks. And I said last week that I wanted more of Sissoko's physical presence in there. I thought Richarlison was going to play more central than on the wing based on how Everton had lined up last year. So I thought Sissoko being in there would have given us more presence in the midfield. So that was the only difference I have. But without Monday morning quarterbacking it, I really didn't have any issue with the lineup. I thought it was a strong lineup. I was concerned that we may have not put out our strongest 11 just based on the fixture congestion we have. So when I first saw that, I was happy seeing that as the lineup. You could see that the new signings clearly are Jose's choices, with Doherty going in there above Aurier, and then on the bench having Joe Hart in there instead of Gazzaniga. I wasn't sure Winks would have been available given that he pulled out of international duty, but overall, no problem seeing that before the match.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that we'd see Sissoko from the start. Dan, were you surprised that Aurier was shelved for Doherty, a guy that probably only had one or two practices, with the first team?
No, not really, because I think we're definitely trying to get rid of Aurier, and Doherty is Jose's man. I mean, why? I liked Poch, but the one thing I didn't like about him was the way that he wouldn't put people in straight away, and he wouldn't do that. And I knew Jose isn't like that. If you're his man, you're his man, and you're going to play. And I was quite glad to see it. I liked him when the lineup was announced. I thought, yeah, great, good team. Probably the strongest team we could have gone for. I mean, maybe Lo Celso would come in, but obviously he's not available. It just all went wrong after that, really.
And if you've already noticed, each of us has a different pronunciation for Doherty. So listeners, you're just going to have to deal with it. Dan says Doherty. Sam says Doherty. I say Doherty. So just deal with it.
We're going to get to him. But before we do, let's talk about Everton and their new 3 shiny signings. Vass, do you have any thoughts as to their lineup? And just, I'd love to get your view when you were comparing our first 11 versus theirs.
Well, look, I think that, and I think I probably mentioned it on the WhatsApp group, was that I thought their backline could be got at. However, it didn't really transpire that way. And if we're talking about new signings, and with the benefit of hindsight now, that ultimately was the difference. Their 3 signings competed and played well, whereas our 2 signings that started, not so much. So you'd have thought that this would be a good time to play Everton, given that they hadn't had time to bed their new signings in, and at least ours had some pre-season, or at least Højbjerg did, but it didn't pan out that way. It was really a bit shit from us, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, the challenge of carrying on with a pod when you know that was, as you just described it, a bit shit. Tim, I don't want to I don't want to go back and try and rewrite history, but I mean, you're very knowledgeable on transfers. I mean, I remember that we'd mentioned Doucouré, but why were we never really in the frame for him? And would he be a suitable player for us?
The reason I don't think we were in the frame for him is that Højbjerg had made it clear, I guess, very early on that he wanted to join Spurs, and that was kind of our main target, and we went after and we got our main target before preseason even started. So I don't think it was an issue of we even need to look elsewhere. I liked Doucouré. When we did our transfer pod, I mentioned him as a target, as someone who could be available with Watford going down. And we saw today, Everton's 3 signings really did completely change that team, because their issue last year was their midfield. They had hardly any protection in front of their back four. And then you bring in both Allen and Decore, and you see right there, they controlled the midfield this game. And it's really down to those two. And James also caused some problems for us, not as much as Richarlison on the other side, but overall their midfield was very solid, and we really struggled to keep up with it. And I think kind of that's what the real difference maker was in this match, is Everton's new signings came up big and completely changed the makeup of that team. And I think we're seeing a really good Everton side. I think this is a side that's probably going to challenge for top 4, just given the quality and the players that they have brought in and how they're looking under Ancelotti. You know, they're doing the Barcelona raid. They got in James. They got in Yerry Mina last year, or the year prior. They got in Andre Gomez. They don't mind going for some older players into Core and Gomez and James, and they're a quality side, and it showed today. I don't think anyone can say that the result doesn't indicate how the game actually panned out.
Yeah, I think it's very fair, and you're not alone in your thinking. We had a comment/question from at Vinny C40, and then also Austin at ATX Bazam chimed in as well. Would you say that this game was more new look Everton looking good, or new look Spurs looking bad? So certainly I think we'd all agree that new look Everton looked pretty good. I guess we need to sort of dissect and dive into how new look Spurs, or how bad new look Spurs really are bad. Dan, let's talk about the performance. It was a slow start to both halves. We had questions about player effort. Not So Skinny Pete asked, and he's at Not So Skinny Pete, and also Jay Knight, he's at JKVT, and Tom, he is at Tom Bodler, sending questions indicating their belief that players didn't give effort this match. Your thoughts there, Dan?
The second half was an embarrassment. Like, I wouldn't say that word lightly for too many times, but the second half was shocking. I don't know whether they had just packed it in and couldn't be bothered, or whether the tactics of the first half of soaking up Everton's pressure and basically letting Everton do what they want with it, and us running around just chasing them, which I thought in a way worked in the first half for what it was. I think that took its toll, and by 50 minutes, as soon as we came out from the second half, I think we had about a 5-minute burst and we looked fine, and then about 5 minutes before they scored, we just absolutely went to shit. And Doherty, whatever, he looked knackered. Højbjerg, he ran around a lot, but a lot of the players just didn't have that energy, and I don't know whether that's because they didn't want to or whether they were just completely tired. However, Everton didn't have that problem. They looked pretty up for it the whole game, and like I say, whether it was because of we were chasing for most of it, we got tired quicker. I don't know, but I mean, what's the temperature like in the UK today? Was it warm, Vess?
Yeah, it's about 23, 24 degrees. Mate, in London, it's about 26 centigrade.
It was hot, but that shouldn't be an excuse of
how badly. I think the difference. Yeah, the difference to me was one team looked organised and the other team didn't. So that was ultimately it. I mean, I don't know what we're playing, how we're playing it. We have become a team that manages to work the ball to its wing backs, only for the ball to work its way back to the centre backs, and we have a real problem moving the ball from defence to attack, and that wasn't helped at all today. We were so unorganised like that, and that was the difference. I mean, we started playing, I believe, a 4-2-3-1. We changed it to a 4-4-2 soon after and pushed Delhi further forward, and then we started to make some progress. Most of the game we were outnumbered in midfield, and that gave Everton control, and I know we're going to talk about substitutions in a minute, but that's what probably prompted the introduction of Sissoko, but at the expense of Delhi. I'm not quite sure there. But yeah, Everton looked organised and we didn't, and that was the short and the tall of it. And then once we went a goal behind, okay, perhaps the heat and running around for 15 minutes took it out of us. It is the first game of the season, but there was just nothing there. I didn't see anything to give me any confidence going forward.
So let me jump in because I'm gonna disagree with there was nothing there. I'll agree that second half there was nothing there, but first half we did have the closer of the chances, and Pickford
We
really came
did.
up
We
big.
did.
So to say there's nothing there, I don't agree with that. Second half though, I will agree there was nothing there, and once that goal went in, the team kind of gave up, and that's unacceptable. But first
Yeah.
half, I thought we were overall the better squad after those first 15 minutes. We had an issue with starting slow on both sides of the half, but once we kind of settled into that first half, we had some really close chances. Sonny put that curler into the back post that Harry Kane was just a foot away from. We had a counter off of a corner where I think Son hesitated and missed his window to play Kane in for his run. The announcer seemed to think that Coleman had kind of taken off any chance to pass an outlet to Kane. I don't think so. I think Son hesitated on that one. But you look at that exchange between Doherty and Kane, that flick over the top and just, point blank shot that Pickford got a foot to. I think he's the one who kept them in this game. And, fortunately for them, he did because they came out strong second half, got an early goal, and then the rest is history. But I did see, some I guess green shoots, if you may, there in
Yeah.
that first half.
There were
Second
some
half was shit,
glimpses.
though.
Yeah, there were some glimpses. You're quite right. I was specifically referring to the second half, but you're quite right about having the better chances in the first half. In fact, I can't really recall Hugo having to make a meaningful save in the whole game,
Right,
if you look at it like that.
and
But I would
exactly, and
say,
that was
sorry, I
fine,
would say,
letting them.
yeah, I would say
Well, how are
that
you
it
going to
took
cut
us
me off and then cough
23.
fast?
Sorry, mate. It took us 23 minutes to create a chance in the first half, and it took us 23 minutes to create a first chance in the second half. And yeah, very frustrating. But carry on. Sorry to interrupt you, Tim.
No, I was going to piggyback on what you were saying about, Hugo not really having much action in the first half, and I don't necessarily mind allowing teams to come on to us if that results in us, snuffing out any space they have in our final third and snuffing out any chances they have, which we did first half. First half, I'm not upset with the performance. Second half, it was piss poor, and there's not really much defending to that, whether it's down to fitness or not. I don't know. Did you guys see Jose's post match comments about some of the fitness issues we had in dealing with COVID?
Yeah, and I've heard that he sort of barked. I can't coach referees. We'll get to
No, 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 no. Hold on. If that's what you're saying, then no, you didn't hear his comments. He confirmed that we did have positive COVID in our squad and that players had to quarantine due to proximity to players with COVID. Players had to quarantine after coming in from holiday. So there was a COVID outbreak within the team. I don't think it's a justification for the performance we saw second half, but I think it does explain a little bit about why players were lacking a lot of fitness due to just minimal training time and players being out because of COVID. This is the first confirmation we've had on this. It was speculated a lot, but I think that is something important to point out.
Well, I'm willing to.
Yeah,
I'm
but
willing
I
to,
think that isn't that. Sorry, Sam. Isn't that just excuses now? Because the only people we know that had COVID were from the France national team. So you're probably talking in what did Ndombele even go? No, Ndombele had COVID from his holiday.
He was rumored
But
to
he
have
said But he said players had the quarantine due to proximity to players in COVID. It doesn't matter if they didn't have it; they had to be away from the training ground.
Well, look. And
Anyway.
I'm willing because it's the first game of the season and we look terrible. I mean, we've hardly said a positive thing. I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt there. But
I'm trying to give us something positive. You said we were trying to be positive here, and everyone's just being fucking negative.
No, I applaud you for that. I want to ask Dan this because I think you're right. Our better half was the first half, Tim. First 15 minutes was really poor. But Dan, even with say 20, 30 minutes of decent performance in the first half, how would you describe the style of play that you saw, and how would you describe what the strategy seemed to be?
There were parts, especially in that first 15 minutes, where I just sat back in my chair and went, this ain't a great watch, but I can see what he's doing. For the first half, I saw what the plan was. And maybe it's because I had the inside working of the documentary and I could sort of roughly see where he was going with certain things. Like Everton had all the possession. They had loads of the ball. But once we got into our final third, they didn't look threatening at all, apart from that awful mistake by Davis or Toby. And I thought to myself, we've sat back and we've not had much of the ball, but we've had 3 good chances. Probably should have put one away, Delhi probably. And we've looked pretty solid. That is fine. And I respected that. And I went, you know what? It's not the best watch, but I saw what the plan was. The problem is the second half, when we had completely run out of energy from chasing the ball too much, and also the tactics when we're a goal down. What do we do next? We don't look like we have any sort of plan B if we go 1-0 down. I mean, those tactics in the first half are fine if you score. If you don't score, it can start to look a bit silly, and I think it did towards the end. Not just effort, but the tactics in what we were putting together to try and score an equaliser. I don't really remember much, apart from a couple of little headers. Everton looked pretty comfortable. Probably should have scored more, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Vash, how do you feel about willing to be giving a strategy of willing to give up possession to Everton at home to start the season?
Yeah, it's hard to take. I mean, we saw it during Project Restart or whatever it was called. We had a few home games and we sat back against West Ham, and we sort of sat back against Leicester. We sat back against who else? Well, whoever it was anyway. And we got the wins, and that's all that mattered. Sam seems to have dropped off the call. I can't see him.
Okay.
Are you still there, Sam?
Yeah, he's still
okay. So, yeah, it's going to be painful watching that kind of football. But really, I mean, there comes a point where we need to take the game to the opponents. And what I see is a lot of hesitancy. I don't see a lot of movement off the ball. I mentioned earlier about our difficulty transitioning the ball from defence to attack. And I see players get the ball, need too many touches, thinking about it too much. There's no fluidity in our play, and it's frustrating because, as Dan just said, if we go a goal down, we're going to struggle with this system. It's the kind of system where, as long as you're sitting back and you get the first goal, then that's great, because then that'll give you further opportunities for additional counters. But if you don't take the lead, then you need something better. You need something more.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the style of play of being 1-0 down. I'd like to see that from the get-go. And I think this style of play makes it very difficult to all of a sudden get yourself started when you're 1-0 down. Why not start from that strategic position? Tim, I got to ask you, I mean, name me one good performance today for Tottenham.
I can't.
Not one?
No.
You know what? I'll bring one up for you, Lucas. And then there's, you just a player that consistently divides opinion. Okay, all right. You know what? How much of Lucas's bad play today was Lucas being put in a bad position?
Well, a lot of occasions when he had the ball, he did lose possession of it, so it killed attack. He gave lots of effort, he did, but none of our front four had a good display today. There was, Son just went completely missing in the second half. Lucas likely did as well. There was just no product to Kane at all, and he had to try and drop back and create something. But that's the problem when you have a player like Harry Kane and we're so reliant on him. You got to find a way to get him the fucking ball, and nobody did that. And that's really where it is. I can't pick out a performance where I can say, okay, yeah, that player did good. Maybe if I'm trying to pick one out, I'll say, Doherty had a decent debut up until his fatigue got him. And it was very clear that his fatigue got him. He went straight from holiday to international duty, didn't come train with us at all. He didn't have a preseason. He didn't. So you could see that that's not the Doherty that we saw the last 2 seasons in the Premier League, where he's flying up and down the pitch the entire 90 minutes. His fitness is not there. It showed. He was getting beat so much by Richarlison, and he had to be subbed off because they probably would have put in 3 more if we didn't take him off and allowed Richarlison that free reign down there. But up until that point, he almost had that first goal from that flick from Kane. I don't think he had that poor of a performance, not like Ben Davies did on the other side of the pitch, where, passing was just poor overall, especially that one to Toby that we somehow lucked out on with Richarlison putting it over the net. But overall, Ben Davies lost possession of the ball, didn't really contribute much going forward. And if you're reliant on your wingbacks to get that service in the Harry Kane, it really didn't happen today. I can't really pick out anybody who was good, Sammy. I can't. I'm trying to find some silver linings to this, but there's really not any that I know of.
Well, let's talk about our manager. Let's talk about his performance today, Tim. And I want everybody to chime on this. I'll start with you because I sense that if there's any of the four of us that'll have kinder comments about our manager, it's likely to be you. So you start. What did you think of him today?
Well, in what respects? I probably know where you're going, so just direct me. What don't you like that he did, and I can give you my comment on it.
I don't want to impart my thoughts in your answer, but try to answer it from sort of a holistic perspective: strategy, substitutions, putting players in certain places, etc.
So I think substitutions is where a lot of people are going to come in, and the big issue is why Sissoko for Dele. We have numerous listener questions on this. Championship Chuck at your_it_Chris. You have Philip Cafe at Philip Cafe, Nathan Cohen, and Trey Terry. They all ask in different forms, some of them more upset than others, why Sissoko for Dele? And I think we talked about it during halftime in our WhatsApp chat about how Dele was struggling before this decision was made. So I don't think anyone can say that Dele was having a great game before that decision was made. And I don't think anybody, when that decision was made, really had that many issues with it. It's at the end of the game when you can look back on it and be upset and try and point fingers at things. That's where it's coming out. I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't agree with becoming more passive, taking off Dele, bringing on Sissoko, taking off our limited, players in the midfield who were actually creative, because that Højbjerg-Winks pairing was very defensive. It wasn't creative at all. So you bring off Dele and put in Sissoko, who we know just isn't that great of a footballer. He's a great athlete and he serves a purpose. But if you want creativity and to try and break that down and create more for Kane, Sissoko's not the one to do it. But Mourinho did explain after the game why he did it, rightly or wrongly. We know why he did it. He said that they were playing with only one player in front of their defenders. Gomez and Decore were pressing higher on Winks and Højbjerg, and it was giving lots of space, and it was very easy to play around for Allen in that area. So he felt that he needed more there, and that's why he took off Dele, someone higher up, to bring on Sissoko in a deeper position to try and battle it out in that midfield. It didn't work out, and so I'm not really going to defend it and say it was the right decision. I don't think bringing on Sissoko was a bad decision because we did need to try and do something in that midfield, but to take Dele off for him, I don't like it.
Dan?
It's just the same old thing, really. It's just I'm not enamored by the style of play, even though I saw what he was doing. What I'm not enamored with the most is that you can drag the players through the mud and say they're not trying, but there's one man who's paid a lot of money to motivate them. And to me, I watch them and I just don't see where they're being motivated or how they're being motivated. And they're definitely not being motivated enough. We can go on about his tactics all the time. I think the substitutions were a bit funny. I think Dele Alli going off was the right thing, because I thought Ali was hopeless first half. He was our worst player, I think, by a long way. And Sissoko came on. I thought, fair enough, stick with three in midfield, like Tim said. But then I see him come basically playing right wing. I was thinking, not sure about that, and he changed it quite quickly, and then Sissoko got changed again to right back, which I'm not necessarily knocking his decisions on that. I'm overstating the point here, but it's the motivation that I just don't see. Sometimes we play, not all the time, but sometimes we play like we just don't care, and we haven't been in the dressing room at all. And it's interesting. Haven't been motivated in the dressing room at all. And it was interesting to see the documentary and see how fired up they got, because how fired up they got in the documentary, in the dressing room at half times and before the game. Contrast that to how we play on the pitch a lot is just baffling to me. I don't know what happens in that tunnel in between both. It just seems to just completely go out of the water. And yeah, again, today was just another one of those, really.
Vass, how much of today is at the hands of the manager, if any percentage of today is at all?
Look, I think responsibility needs to be shared equally between the manager and the players. Now, the players should be in some decent conditioning by now. Regardless of this COVID thing, we've seen many of them play in pre-season friendlies. We saw some of them play for their countries recently. But the fact that, I mean, you've only got to look at Harry Kane's body language more than anyone, and that's the concern for me, because Harry Kane's one
cue,
of our.
Cue the music. Cue the music. Body language report incoming.
I totally forgot about that.
I gotta find that music as well.
Yeah. No, but I mean, the man just looks fed up to me. Okay, maybe it was just today. Maybe it was because things were going bad. But these are issues. I mean, as Dan said, this is what Mourinho is paid to do. Mourinho spent all week talking about wanting to go into every game with a positive mentality, believing you can win and going for the win. And even though sometimes we might lose or sometimes we might draw, which is natural, this is the mentality we're going to go into every game with. Well, I didn't see that today. And okay, we weren't too bad in the first half. But in the second half, especially if you go 1-0 down at home, you need to see a reaction. And I didn't see anything. And that's on Mourinho primarily, but it's also on the players to do better. They've got the talent. They should know what they need to do better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the frustrating thing for me is that, and especially given that, my God, we just got done with the very first game of the season, is that we're going to need a catalyst. There has to be something that, to your point that you just made, we got to be a change somewhere, and it has to come from, either is driven from the manager or the players or some combination thereof. And I'm a pretty creative guy, and I sort of look at the collective. I look at the manager and look at the players, and I'm just wondering to myself, wow, is really much of anything changed, and can it change? I mean, we're ultimately going to see. All right, we got a lot of questions in.
Sorry, Sam. Just one quickie before you move on.
Yeah.
The commentary here in the UK on Sky TV. Gary Neville was co-commentating. We came in for a lot of stick, not just from Gary Neville, but from commentary, from sideline reporting. Gary Neville said that our response to going 1-0 down was poor, that the players were out there, they were sulking, they didn't sort of try to do anything about being behind. There was other comments during the game about not knowing what formation we're playing, what the system was, and it just looked as much of a shambles to them as it did to us. And first game of the season, Everton haven't beaten us since 2012, right? And even then they needed a last-minute goal to do that. This is a team where traditionally, I know that they're a good team today, they play really well, but this is a team traditionally where we have it over them generally. First game of the season, and not being up for it, first game of the season, that's on the manager, and the players need to look at themselves as well. Do they want to be?
Yeah, and also there was a stat, I don't know if this came up on the worldwide coverage, but they haven't won away at any of the big six sides in 40 matches. So I think it's since 2014 or something. They've not won away at Tottenham, United, Arsenal, whoever, and today they did. So
yeah, and Jose had lost. I don't think he'd lost the season opener in his career in the Premier League as well. Look, I think there's one thing that is worth pointing out, and I'm not saying that the Everton was exceptional, but I thought they were very serviceable today. I thought they had a plan. I thought they had a number of good individual performances, and certainly they deserved the result. But I wonder how much of, look, they've got reasons to be energetic, right? They've got an ownership group that seems to be willing to be aggressive, to spend money, to make big wagers, and maybe there's something to be said about being a part of that. Conversely, we got the issues that we've got, same old, and then obviously all the issues with COVID and money and not spending and not seeming to be ambitious. I mean, I wonder how much that plays a role in things. Because, I mean, let's face it, the things that we're talking about right now are the things that we've been talking about. We've been talking about since Jose showed up. Not really much has changed, but to be fair, he got results. So, all right, let's move on to some of the quick fire questions. We got a question from Charles Zollers. He's at
No.
What? Why are you doing this to me? Why?
Because I bolded it and italicized it for you. That's why I'm doing this to you. Ndombele.
Where?
We've talked about it. It's bolded and italicized under Jose's substitutions. All right, here we go. Championship Chuck at your_it_Chris. Do we still want Ndombele to play because it feels like he was giving the ball away every time he touched it? Sammy, what are your thoughts on Ndombele?
Think he's a really lazy player. I think he's incredibly talented. I don't know that you can. Yeah, well done too. I don't know that you can. I don't know that you coach him out of his laziness. I mean, he's so talented. We look better as a result of him being in there. But man, when he loses the ball, his desire, his level of sort of gumption is it's atrocious. And I don't see that changing.
Disagree.
I didn't see that at all today.
Disagree.
No, there's one situation where he ran around to kind of give like the impression that he was trying to get the ball back, and he never did.
No, disagree.
I
think
I'm with Coney on this one.
No, he came on and first pass he did was a forward pass. Okay. And he started moving us forward. Shut up, Sam. My turn now.
Oh. But I'm not disagreeing. No, he was right. I agree with you.
Now listen, he did give the ball away. He did give the ball away on a few occasions, and that was because he was trying forward passes, and he was trying forward passes in between a bloody blue wall because our players were static. Okay, he should have made some of those passes, and some of the passes, a couple of them were sloppy. I'll grant that. But no, this man needs to play. He's the only player we got outside of Lo Celso who can put us on the front foot. Harry Winks, like him, he's a lovely guy, but he's not who we need in our midfield. I'm tired of the centre-backs playing the ball into Harry Winks for him to give a wall pass back to the centre-back without even looking. All right, we need better in our midfield, and then Ndombele is better, as is Lo Celso when he's fit.
Let me put my 2 cents in on Ndombele because I did come down kind of hard on him after the Watford preseason match, and I thought he gave a very poor effort there. In today's match, he was poor as a footballer. He lost possession. He was just poor overall. But what I saw was a player actually giving effort that I hadn't seen in the past, and I'm taking that as a huge positive because I saw Ndombele actually trying today and trying to create something for us, and not just walking around when he wasn't in possession. I saw him running. I saw him tracking back, and I liked what I saw from that. Overall, it didn't come off for him. Like I said, he just wasn't good today. He was poor losing possession. He didn't make that impact as a sub, but we saw something from him that we've been needing to see, is a player who actually cares when he's on the pitch, and that's what I noticed today from Ndombele. So I'm going to disagree with you, Sammy, in saying that he's a lazy player, because I didn't see a lazy player out there today. I saw a poor footballer out there today, but I didn't see a lazy player.
No, I go back at the second pass that he lost today, and I agree with you. I mean, I think he showed more of greater energy level than some of the performances, the really bad ones, particularly that we've seen. So I agree with you. Look, I think at the net, we're much better with him there. But we need players, right? We talked about this. We need discipline. We need this sort of foxhole mentality, like the guy next to you. Do you want him in a war with you? I mean, forgive the analogy. But we don't have that with him, and we're not going to get that with him. And I don't know. So that means that the parts around him are going to need to be much stronger. And so I understand Vass's lamentations about, center backs and players around him. And I agree with him. He needs to be in. He needs to be in. He needs to play more. But I think at the heart of it, I worry that he's just not the complete player that we need him to be at that position. We don't have a manager that's going to get much more out of him. I don't know. We'll see. What else?
Dan,
where else?
Dan, well, hold on. Yeah, Dan, do you have any thoughts on Ndombele from today?
To be honest, I agree with you and Beth. To be honest, actually, the first thing came on, he played that forward pass. I went, oh, thank fuck for that. Please, just play a forward fucking pass.
That was great.
Yeah,
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and I think we've got to make our mind up with him because it's his second season now. Either we put him in the team and we see the good side of him and the bad side of him, or we sell him because there is no point in him being on the bench coming on for 10, 15 minutes. I think give him a chance.
Agree.
If he completely
Agree.
fails and flops, we've got a month to shift him on, I suppose. I think it's October the 9th it all ends. But we need to make a decision with him because we can't just keep him. We can't do what we did with him last season, this season again.
No, totally agree. So I don't think there's any
Agree.
disagreement between any of us that he should play. I just don't know.
I think the disagreement is you didn't see him giving an effort today, and the three of us actually saw an effort, just not a good footballing performance.
No, I do. I recognize the same things that you did. He was more energized than what he was before. But like that second pass that he lost, it was a little bit of that. I can't remember the display that it was. It was so bad that he was jogging after that player. He ran after him, and then he just kind of decided to slow down, and then he just kind of mailed it in. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wow, he's only being really asked to play for 20 minutes. Now you can point to him not being, in conditioning and all that. But for Christ's sake, we've been talking about him not being in conditioning since the moment he showed up at Spurs. Enough. So I want to see him play. I'm with you guys. All right. Can I ask Charlie Zollers questions now?
Yeah, you can now.
Yeah,
now that you've asked now that we've discussed all the other thing that was bold and italicized.
I'm the fucking host here, okay? Charlie Zollers, Charlie Zollers with 2 L's and 2 S's. Perhaps this inspires the board to push on with a signing or two. Excuse me, let me ask this again. Perhaps this inspires the board to push on with a signing or two more after getting a backup striker. And I just look, for 6 years that we've been doing this pod, we've always thought about, well, man, maybe this will wake up the board. No, it's not going to wake up the board. What's going to do what the board's going to do. So I'm going to move on from that. Belsh Bembino, this is a new one, at Bevlar90. Dan, will he ever feel happiness for Spurs again?
Probably not. No, no, he will. It will get better again. I'm fairly sure. I don't think we'll ever see what we saw last season or the team before.
Why would you give him false hope like that? Just tell him no.
No, sorry, mate.
Joshua at How I Follow Sport. Who is the most famous player on Tottenham? And Vass, why is it Alex Morgan?
Yeah, Alex Morgan, welcome to Spurs. But the most famous player on Tottenham right now is probably Harry Kane and Heung-min Son.
No, it's not. It is not.
Who is it?
If you're talking about worldwide, no, seriously, I'm being completely honest on this. If you're talking about worldwide, who is more famous that more people know worldwide, it's 100% Alex Morgan. You just look at Twitter followers; she's over 1 million more than Harry Kane. No, I'm being serious. I'm not talking about diehard football fans or even casual football fans. You're just talking about popularity. Who's the most famous? It is Alex Morgan.
I think you're a bit distorted by being in America.
I think so too.
I'm just looking on Twitter accounts of over 1 million followers.
Think about all those people in China who don't have Twitter accounts who all know Harry Kane, probably don't know Alex Morgan.
Oh, there's definitely no Alex Morgan.
Yeah, and you got Alex Morgan and you got Harry Kane. You're not going to tell me that Alex Morgan is going to be more recognizable. But
I am telling you that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, well, we'll put this to
a poll. Yeah,
we'll put it in a poll. I know somebody who's good at putting out polls for us. Where are we here?
Harry Kane has got 3 million followers. Is that what you said? She's got 1 million or something.
9 million.
No, I said she's got about 1 million more than him.
Oh, right. Okay.
I will ask you this though, Tim. Is her signing Spursy?
I guess it is that, the board will go in and make a huge signing for the women's team and not the men's team. I guess that is pretty Spursy.
All right.
Look. I told you guys that's my celeb crush number 2. So
I hate to ask you all these questions, but
Tim's got a list.
What, you don't have a list? Them. You don't have a list?
Not one that I've ranked, no.
To be clear, if I ever would have kept the list, you never would have been on it. Let's see. Keith K. Tim, I have to ask you this. At K Club Keith. Tim, what's the name of the team that Oliver Skip was named man of the match for?
The Canaries?
No, but what town are they from?
They're from Norwich.
Pretty good.
Yeah, he knows how to say it now. So
I know how to
can't
say
get
it.
him
Well,
in.
because you had to have somebody who actually like broke it down to how it's actually said. All these people are like, oh, the fucking W and the R, and this dude's like, no,
Yep.
just say porridge with an N. Okay, Norwich.
I didn't-
You gotta
There
break
you
it down.
go.
Break it down
Killed
to
it.
like
Amazon
five,
documentary.
okay?
Amazon
Explain
documentary.
it to
Have
me
to
like
watch.
on five.
I got Mark Paulette. Amazon Doc. Oh, he's at Mark Paulette. Pollette. Agree. It's good. Sam, please consider watching it. We want your opinion. I want to watch it. I mean, I really do. Every day this week, I had like these bouts of boredom, and I was like, oh fuck it. And then I even went as far as to go into Amazon Prime, and Angie was next to me, and she's just like, wow, there's a Spurs doc, right? Because she saw All or Nothing on there, and I'm like, yeah, and I know I can't watch
Beard.
it.
Beard, come in on this. That's the way to get Sammy to watch it. Hit up Mrs. Z.
I almost did so.
Yeah.
Then I swear to God, I did think of this. I thought, well, then I have to admit on Twitter to Beard that my wife talked me into watching it, and I just couldn't bear the
I
follow-
hadn't even thought about that route of doing it. So Vass, what we have to do is we gotta reach out to her this week because that will get Sammy to watch this.
I really want to watch it. I really, really, really want to watch it. It's like eating at me. I'll be the first to
Just
admit.
do it then.
Ah, yeah. Well, let's talk about it. Let's not talk about me. Let's talk about it. Let's see. Dustin at Devo1980. What do you make of the behind-the-scenes video of the Sonny and Hugo spat? Even Serge was involved by holding Hugo back as Jose brought a shift in mentality. Vass.
Before today's game, I would have said yes. But after today's game, I'm not so sure.
All right. Nitin Cohen at Nitin Cohen 17. What's the most surprising, interesting thing you've seen in All or Nothing? For him, it's Hugo's leadership. I feel like a douche for questioning his captaincy and owe him an apology. We've always heard about the respect he commands behind the scenes, but to actually see it was really cool. Dan, talk us through that scene.
Hugo's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised as well. He didn't seem that sort of character, and that was the perception I think most of us had. But he was. I mean, good luck to him. I think that's why people shouldn't judge captains so much. I mean, probably maybe me included. You don't know what's going on inside the dressing room, and this interesting look into it was, it was a good watch into it basically. And I think he's been our captain for what, 10 years, 8 years, no, maybe 8 years. He's France's captain. I mean, really thinking about it, we were stupid to question him.
Fair enough.
That was surprising for me. I'm gonna say one of the things that I think was really surprising in it is just how disinterested in his job Steve Hitchen is. And Sammy, you'll like that if you go look at it. But I mean, the dude seems like he just doesn't care. And he's not enthusiastic about it. We signed Stevie B and he just meh.
Yeah, I saw.
I think the issue with that is. Sorry,
No, go ahead.
carry on.
No, I was saying I saw lots of chatter on this and people really pissed off. Vash, maybe a quote of his was taken out of context. Tell us about the Hitchen thing.
Yeah, I think what he said was he finds not in so few words, but he basically said that he finds the January transfer window a ball ache. He doesn't like it because it's like a month long and it's like a load of pressure and gamesmanship and whatever, and he can't stand it. And to be fair, I don't think he's the only one. Pretty sure Sir Alex Ferguson said something similar when he was in management about the January transfer window. And it's a commonly held view amongst a lot of people that need to do these deals in January. So I don't think there was anything untoward in what he said. Whether he's good at his job or not, I don't know. It's just a different thing altogether.
I think there is something untoward in what you said because Sir Alex Ferguson, you're a manager. You can complain about the transfer windows because that unsettles your squad. When your fucking job is to bring in players and that's the way you're approaching it, I don't know, but that really irks me. When that is your sole job is to help improve us in the transfer window and do something, and that's your mentality to it. It just pisses me off seeing that. And I don't know if I'm taking it a little too far, but I just didn't like seeing his comments on it like that.
Yeah,
I think a few people felt the same as you, Tim, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a number of people did, and in the last time I've seen him sort of expose to any degree was I think when NBC did an interview with Levy and about the stadium, and Hitchen was involved with that, and he, to be fair, he came off quite well. But yeah, no, I saw lots of people that on Twitter particularly that had the same view that you did, and I agree with Vass. I'm like, you got one job, and we should be looking at any window opportunistic, no matter how much of a ball ache it is. So it's a shame he kind of didn't come off well. Gordon Maxwell. I mean, Danny Rose was all the rage this week, right? Because I guess the episode was aired with him sitting down with Mourinho. So Gordon Maxwell, he's at GM79 Maxi. Danny Rose said other people have been shit in training, shit in games, and play every game and are in the squad every game. It's not fair. It's facts. The whole changing room know it. It's facts. Dan, who do you think he's talking about? Is it Aurier?
I can't remember. When was that? Was it February time? I can't remember who was playing it. Was it Tanganga was playing left back, but I can't imagine he'd been talking about him. Sissoko maybe, Aurier probably. But even still, can I just sort of divulge away from that slightly? I found that bit the most interesting part of the whole documentary so far. I think you really got an understanding of why Rose fell off a cliff at Spurs after that meeting. And when I watched it, I didn't really disagree with anything he said, because I think there's a clip of him just before that in the Liverpool match where he talks about the tactics of giving it back to Gazzaniga and lumping it up forward. And I remember thinking the same thing at the time, like, this is not a tactic. We couldn't keep the ball at all. And so I was sort of sitting there going, I agree with what you're saying, but you could tell why Mourinho shipped him out, because he came in very aggressive, I think very sort of petulant. And if you're going to have someone in the squad who's kind of just completely against you, it was the right thing to push him out. But in terms of the documentary, I think that was a really decent insight that I think was worth watching alone for, really.
My favorite part from these 3 episodes, we're talking about episodes 4 through 6. Dan saying his favorite part was kind of that Rose part. My favorite part was in episode 4, the Tanganga focus, and just learning about him. Joined the club when he was 9, still lives with his parents 2 miles from the stadium. He was scouted by Chelsea, but he came here. I loved seeing that focus on it, because that was one of the few bright spots from last season, is him coming into the team and the immediate impact he has. And it's just this academy player that now we have for the future. And so I liked reliving that. A lot of the things, I really don't like reliving, because the season last year didn't have many positive moments, but that was one of them. And so I think that was my favorite part from these 3 episodes.
You make a really great there, because it seems like the one consistent theme, right, that I'm getting just from sort of being on the outside looking in, is that everybody agrees that the production level here is really high. Like, you're really getting to see things that, like what Dan said about Hugo, what you just said about Tanganga, what Dan talked about. You get to see how Danny Rose is as a person, and a lot of how we're defined as man is not what we think, is how we present what we think. And seems like he didn't do a very good job of sort of presenting his views there, right? So I mean, as a result of that,
I think
you're really enjoying this thing, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, because it's what I said previously about giving you something of an insight, and I think you could almost feel people's attitude towards Mourinho changing off the back of it, because you start to see the human side of things. And Mourinho was asked about it the other day, whether he would do it again, and he said he doesn't enjoy it, but yeah, he would do it again, because it gives people on the outside a view of what goes on behind the scenes. But the whole, just to labour on the Danny Rose thing a little bit longer, it made me cringe a little bit, that scene with Jose, and I wondered a little bit. I know Danny Rose has had some mental health issues in the past. Maybe he's just forthright or misunderstood. I don't actually know. But the way he handled it, as Dan said, it probably was the end for him after that point. And when he finished the meeting with Jose, he said something about, I'm going to tell Daniel too. So tell Daniel I'm looking for him, or something. So it was like he was going to go and tell on his boss or something. It was quite hard to watch, really. And he got a lot of stick as well after on social media, because when he was talking with Daniel Levy about potential moves, he asked if there was any interest from Milan, and he was ribbed about that quite a lot, as if he would go to Milan, for example. But I suspect his agent probably had something to do with that, probably told him Milan was interested, and that's why he asked that question. But yeah, the whole Danny Rose thing just left me a little bit uncomfortable, if I'm honest.
I'm going to stick up for him with the Milan thing, actually, because they had a conversation about, Levy said, not at the moment, no, they're trying to sell someone else on. So the discussions must have been taking place. I think someone's obviously said, Milan are in for you, and he's potentially, and then he's gone to Daniel and said, what about Milan? Have they come back? Completely reasonable question. People have just taken it and been horrible to him. But I'm a bit of a Danny Rose fanboy, so.
Yeah. let me jump in real quick because we talked about this earlier in the week and I didn't include it on the rundown. But Danny Rose, Christian Eriksen. I mean, I just don't like the feeling towards them at the end of their career. You know, they gave so many years for the club. And look, and I'm not saying I have a positive feeling towards them. That's what I hate is that these players that have given so much to us, the way they've ended kind of their career at Spurs, Eriksen just wanting to move on, not signing a new contract, us being put in a bad position in the transfer market. It's not his fault. You know, he shares some blame. The club shares some blame. Everybody handled it poorly. Same thing with Danny Rose, the way this has all been handled now in the final year of his contract, not being able to sell him, not being able to get a fee. It's all horrible. I feel bad that, you know, these players that have given so much to us, this is how they leave the club, and this is how we feel about them when they leave at the end, when they should be celebrated for all they've done for us. I mean, I don't like it, and I don't like feeling this way about it.
Yeah, also, I agree. Sorry. You can add Jan in there as well.
Yeah, and also with Eriksen, it was really interesting when he said Levy offered him the same money that he would have got elsewhere, and Eriksen said, "Look, it's not about money. It's completely not about money." And then I sort of thought to myself, how can you have a go at a player as a fan who doesn't want more money somewhere else? He just wants to move abroad. I mean, think how easy that is for me and you if we want to go and fuck off somewhere else and live somewhere else or do whatever we want. For a player, it's difficult.
Like you have done.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I only had a month's notice and they let me go for free. But yeah, so in terms of, you know, he wanted to go abroad. His wife, you know, wanted to learn Italian. I have no idea. But you can't blame a man for wanting to go abroad and just do something different with his life. And I think, in a way, at the start of the documentary, he got scapegoated a bit, and they were saying Eriksen wants to leave. But I think when they actually spoke to him, and when he spoke to Daniel Levy, I think he came across as just, you know, a nice bloke who's given Spurs 6.5 years worth of service and should be applauded. And I think he will in a few years. Give it 2 or 3 years when people have calmed down. He'll come back one day for a Legends game and he'll get the biggest round of applause in the stadium. So
I love those ominous bells in the background.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
You know what? Before we go on, I want to circle back to a comment that Vass said that opinions seem to have changed as a result of some of the more recent episodes of All or Nothing. I got to ask Tim this because you're a lawyer and lawyers aren't supposed to believe anything. Do you believe the personality, the character formation or description that AON is giving off about Jose?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Jose's coming off fake. I don't think Jose's acting for the camera. I think they're choosing, you know, certain clips to put in there. I don't think it's anything that Jose's doing. I think it is a production. Does that answer your question?
Oh, I think it's a fair question. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I was kind of curious to get your take. All right, we got to move on.
I certainly don't think he's trying to put a show on for the camera. I think this is how Jose is, and I think they chose what parts of Jose's personality they want to show in there. I mean, look, you had this one scene in what episode was it? I think episode 4 or whatever. Jose's talking to the players. He's like, "I'm sorry about my mood. It's not you. My dog died." And so I don't have any mood towards any of you, but we're coming in here and we got a match and I'm just in a pissed mood and I apologize for it, or whatever he said to that effect. So, I mean, I think Jose's just being real throughout all of it. That is Jose, whether we're seeing, you know, the whole personality of him or not. I don't think so, but I don't think that there's a show being put on by him personally.
Fair enough. Well, I respect your views. Need for a striker. That's like all the rage. We've got loads of questions. I mean, I really want to kind of drill it down to one. I'll start it with Vass. We'll talk through some of these questions, but Vass as a whole, where we are today with however much time we have left between now and when the window closes, how have we handled the striker situation?
Well, pretty poorly by all accounts, really. But it always comes down to the fact that we don't know what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to transfers. I suppose if you want someone bad enough, you're going to just drop some cash and get them. I don't know if we're waiting for this Milik thing to play out, because I know that he had some personal terms agreed with Juve. I'm not sure if that's going ahead now. So maybe we're waiting for that to play out. We've been linked to some other strikers, one from Portugal just yesterday, plus Diallo at Metz and Dakar at Salzburg. But the guy at Salzburg said he wants to stay in Austria for another year. So I can't really say. I mean, I don't think our ills are going to be solved by signing a backup striker. We got systemic issues in our team that need addressing, and I don't know whether we're addressing those at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point there. I'm glad that you brought that up. I mean, it's an important piece of the puzzle, but it's not the be all end all. We got to just a question. Go ahead, please go ahead.
I was going to bring in the Daryl Bradford's comment. Yeah. I don't know if you were going there, but I don't agree with Daryl on a lot of things, especially his feelings towards Sissoko. But I do like this comment, and that's fair that I don't agree with him on certain things. But this comment he did make on the striker issue, I agree with it 100%. He asked about thoughts on Jose's challenge to prospective strikers. He said he really appreciates him calling it out. We don't want weak ass people who don't want to compete with our best players, like Warner, Jesus, Origi. He says, tell that to them. You're going to come in. You don't have to compete. No, you don't want that. You go to Newcastle if you just want to walk in to play, like Colin Wilson, I guess, just did. But I agree with Daryl on this is, some of these players who their agents come out and say, well, we don't want to go to Tottenham because you're just going to sit behind Harry Kane. Well, yes, Harry Kane's, one of the best strikers in the world, but you're a footballer and you need to compete for your spot. So I don't want someone here who, thinks they're entitled to it or doesn't want to work for it. That's not what we need. We've been talking about a lot, improving the mentality of the squad. Those certainly aren't the players that you want to bring in. So if we're not able to get a striker because they're saying, well, I don't want to work for it, I just want to be handed it. I mean, look, it's going to be hard to find somebody if that's the attitude that a lot of these players are having. So I agree 100% with you, Daryl, on that. I like Jose's challenge and how he called that out.
Hey, we had one interesting. We had a number of questions. One that I thought was particularly interesting, in addition to the one from Daryl. Vanch Ben Saul, he's at VBeats10. How much more are you willing to pay for a striker if they arrive in time to play? Let's say EFL Cup third round, Europa League third round, or Europa League playoff versus after. Levy should factor that in before we get knocked out of League Cup and UEFA League, tire our main players, and lose a Premier League match from fatigue. Dan, you're nodding your head. So
I've got a great example of this from, I think it was 2011. I think it was when we finished fifth, at 1 point behind Arsenal. I think we got all our deals done on deadline day. However, we'd already been beat by Man City, Man United, and drew with someone. And someone said, well, if we'd have got a couple of the players in and settled the squad 2 weeks earlier, we might have picked up an extra point from those 3 games, and which has ended up costing us maybe 50, 60 million. I mean, that's an example. But in this window especially, and when does it close? Is it October the 9th? I think it's something like that. It's a long way in. So it's a month into the season.
Yeah.
I think you'd pay a 10% premium to get them earlier, or maybe even more. I mean, the problem is if we were waiting to the end of the window to get them cheap, I would understand it, like Van der Vaart. However, Sissoko is a great example of waiting to the end of the window, getting completely desperate, and ended up overpaying by probably double. So it doesn't work that way all the time either.
Yeah, great point. All right, fixture congestion. Gerard O'Shea, goes by Jet. I actually met this guy. He's a nice guy too. I met him in a very awkward situation in the loo.
Tell us about it, son.
Yeah, was it the Irish, right? Yeah, and I guess he heard me talking and he remembered. He recognized the sound of my voice. Anyway, he asked, "Are you worried about the
Yeah, but where in the Irish, man?
It was in the loo. It was in the loo.
Okay.
Sends me a text today. He says, "Have you met any more strange men in the loo?" No, that was flattering. Yes. Are you worried about the future, about the fixture congestion at the very start of the season? Yes. What with travel and rust and one match knockout, I'm worried a second sting might come unstuck against one of these Euro minnows, and I think he makes a fair point here. Bass, is he onto something here?
Well, it's always a risk, isn't it? With these ties being one-legged affairs, away, not knowing what to expect. you can't just throw the kids in there because the consequences are going to be huge if you don't win the game. So he's got to go there with a team capable of winning. I think there's enough talent in our squad to make sure that he mixes it around for us to be able to field a strong enough team. So that would be one to watch on, when is it, Tuesday we're playing this week?
Now we're playing at home, right? We're not having to travel for this, are we?
No,
we
it's
gotta
away.
travel
It's
away
away.
to fucking Bulgaria.
So we've got a one-legged tie. Why are we having to travel? I would have thought we would have been the stronger team. We would have had the matches at home.
Out of the hat draw.
Is that right?
It's a draw. Look, and I'm really concerned about it. If we approach that match with the mentality that we had the second half against Everton, I mean, that could happen. I don't want, a Spurs player to be the video of that West Ham fan, Astra fucking Gugu when they got knocked out. That's so cringeworthy, and I am worried about it. That if we have that mentality and we don't take this seriously, yes, they are a far less superior talent, but we still need to take this seriously. It's a one-off game, and you need to fucking get in there and get at it.
Well, we're gonna briefly preview that match in a second, but before we do, let's talk about injuries.
All right, cue the no music injury report. Looking at this week ahead, There you go, Sammy. Well, I'm not going to give you an update on the Bulgarian farmers because it's just going to be pointless and nobody's going to know their names. And I could just make a bunch of shit up and say this person's out, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a good shout, starting center back.
Is Stoichkov going to play? That's all I want to know.
He pulled a hammy. Racing to the fridge to get a sandwich. Okay, so looking at your injury report for Southampton, I will give you a report on that game. They have one player to keep an eye on, Stuart Armstrong, their attacking midfielder. He returned from international duty with Scotland carrying a thigh injury. He wasn't able to play in their opener against Crystal Palace, so keep an eye on him for his status, whether he's able to go at the weekend. For us, you got two players that have injury concerns. Lo Celso was a late fitness test for Everton with a hamstring issue. Obviously, he wasn't able to go. Jose talked about thinking he would be available for the midweek fixture should we choose to play in there. So it sounded like Lo Celso is coming back into the fold, could play one of these two games. Yaphet Tanganga, though, is expected to be out for this week at least. He ended last season with a back issue. Now he's dealing with a thigh issue that he picked up in preseason, kept him out of the opener. He's expected to be out a few weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we just wait until the end of international break, let him fully recover. I hope he can come back because with this congestion, we're going to need him. But at least for this injury report, looking at the week ahead, Tanganga's out. Lo Celso could be coming back. Keep an eye on Stuart Armstrong for Southampton, and that's your injury report.
Fabulous. So let's get right back talking about Europe and how we expect to line up. Tim, start us there, and we'll have a little chit chat.
I mean, I do expect to see a lot of changes, but I'm not expecting to see, all the kids playing. I would expect players who didn't start today to have the chance to start, that being, Lamela, Davinson Sanchez, Serge Aurier. So you're still bringing in strong players. Hopefully Lo Celso is able to go by that game if we choose to play him there. I with what we saw in the midfield today, if he's ready to go and he's coming off an injury, I'd rather save him for Southampton. But I'm not expecting a bunch of the kids to feature in the midweek match against the Bulgarian farmers. But I think we still will see, one or two of them, maybe off the bench.
Vash, you have a view that maybe Bergwijn will get more time than Lucas midweek?
Yeah, I do. I think Jose obviously loves Lucas. We've touched on that before in previous pods, and maybe he's his man in the more important games or the league games, let's say. So I'd hope that Stevie B gets a full 90 on Tuesday.
Yeah, and if he does, then he likely is not going to get a start against Southampton. What changes from Everton do you think will be made, Dan? And you got to look at it from you can't ignore obviously a midweek fixture. What are your thoughts there?
Without the midweek fixture, I presume Lo Celso would definitely come in next week. The problem is I look at that team and I sort of think that was probably our best team. I think Sissoko maybe might start instead of Winks. Maybe even Ndomble might play. I don't know really. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe Sanchez in for Dyer. I know we didn't really speak about his game today, but I don't know. I still prefer Sanchez in there with Toby. I think personally, maybe that. I don't know.
Let me ask you this: if Lo Celso was healthy today, do you think there was a place for him in the starting 11?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think at worst he would have come on for Ali at half time. Yeah, I think him and Højbjerg might be the preferred option. I don't know, but he's the only player who's got any sort of creativity in our side, like we were saying earlier, and I think you have to find a way of getting him in, however that is.
Dan's just ready to see that 4-3-3 with the trio of Højbjerg and Ndombele and Lo Celso, aren't you, Dan?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
That. I'd love. I'm right there with it. All right, Lula. I mean, we've covered a lot today. There's a lot to talk about. I wish that we would have come away with 3 points. We didn't. It's hard. It's hard not to. It's hard not to have a wider lens when you're really hoping that you get off to a good start. But my God, I mean, what is it? A 38-game season? I mean, we got a long, long way to go. And my hope is that there's a good enough collection of talent here between players and leadership, and that we can find our way in a successful season. But I'll just say this: today what I saw on the pitch was reason enough to understand why no major pundit puts us in the top 4. So there's going to have to be changes here. It's going to have to be catalyst, or a catalyst of sort. Anyway,
bring in Gareth Bale. That's your change, right, Sammy? Sammy wants to keep talking about it. He's probably upset I didn't put it on the rundown.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer. I think it starts with really, really good leadership, and that's my biggest worry. And I'm not going to get on a big Jose moan. I hope I'm wrong. We got any shout outs? Got anything else we didn't cover? Pig Farmers on Wednesday, Southampton on the weekend.
And you're all off on your days.
Come on, you Spurs. All right.